In this edition of the Deep Dive, you know, you know that I have always stood up for justice and equality and rights, the rights of every human being to the most fundamental right they have, which is the right to life. You also know that I've stood up to the criminals. I've stood up and steadfastly spoken out against the criminals who have wrought havoc in our country, taking thousands and thousands and thousands of lives over the last couple of decades. Now, one of the things that I've spoken out against, in no uncertain terms, excuse me, has been the weakness of the police high command. I've always felt that the police high command has not done nearly enough or has had enough backbone to stand up to the political directorate in letting them know that they are going to support the men and women under their command. And this starts from the top of the police department, which is the commissioner of police. I've always thought that they were weak, feckless, weak and feckless, and of no use, not to mention the deputies and the assistants and all the others who came after them. That is one of the reasons why I left the force. I didn't want to be led by weak men, even as a young constable. I had no intention of being led by weak, feckless, and ineffective men and women. I had no desire for it. And when it was announced that Kevin Blake, I had basically given up on the Jamaican Constabulary Force. And when it was announced that Kevin Blake, I don't know Kevin Blake, but when it was announced that Kevin Blake would become the new commissioner, I just thought it was going to be par for the course. And of course, the Labour Party government that has formed, the PNP, decided that it was going to just use soldiers, which basically killed the morale of the force. They allowed Jamaicans for Justice to implant its own brand of law enforcement on the Jamaican Constabulary, and as a result, crime escalated, gangs escalated because everybody understood that Jamaica was a free-for-all. Jamaica had become a free-for-all under the PNP, completely destroyed. And then, Andrew Holness took over, and he seemed like he didn't get it, that it was imperative that he take a stand. And so he brought in the previous commissioner from the military as well. He continued that tradition. I spoke out against that. I understood that he had actually started to nevertheless establish some groundwork for probably a marginally more effective force, even though I would countenance that has not yet reached where it should be in terms of a modern country's police department. But we can always have a conversation on that, which we won't have tonight. The reality is, as I see it, like I said, I didn't know Kevin Blake, but I thought Kevin Blake was just going to be one of those lackeys. But this commissioner is starting to really, really impress me. And I did one deep dive I did. I spoke about Commissioner Kevin Blake, and I was like a little bit, he had gotten my attention, but now he's really starting to get my attention. But I'll let time pass and see how the commissioner does. But he continued to impress me, and I wanted to just incorporate a part of what he said recently into this deep dive.
Note of the Jamaican for Justice's condemnation of what they described as intolerable number of fatal shootings by the security forces. I strongly support the view that the number of fatal shootings is too high. However, the call is wrongly directed and should be aiming at those who make the decision to challenge a far more superior force. And so let me encourage the Jamaican for Justice to be more responsible in their public pronouncements, especially when the nation is aware of its members' proven ability to comprehend the most basic and fundamental principles of security. To suggest that fatal shooting numbers can be reduced by anything other than the unwillingness of persons being apprehended to engage in deadly confrontation with members of the security forces is irresponsible, or at best, advocating for us to relent in our pursuit. We again reiterate the point that those who seek to kill and maim will not be left free and unobstructed to hold communities at ransom and in constant fear. It means we make no apology to stand between these murdering thugs and the people of this country. We also wish to reiterate the idiocy of these criminal elements in seeking to engage the security forces with deadly force and expect not to be responded to with similar force. Ladies and gentlemen, our prisons and police lockups are fully populated with persons who have made the smarter choice of surrendering peacefully to the police.
Listen, the commissioner ain't done. But listen, I did a deep dive the other day talking about the very same thing. What the Jamaicans for Justice, we need to get them out of our country. They need to go. They are a subversive force in our country. Jamaicans for Justice is funded by foreign money and it needs to go. And action needs to be taken to remove Jamaicans from justice from our country. The prisons and the jails are filled with criminals who decided to surrender. Kevin Blake, he's starting to get it. This commissioner gets it. This police commissioner freaking gets it. I've been writing about this for a long time. Prisons and jails are filled with people who decide to surrender to the police. Make no mistake about it. But what they do to gain relevance is to come out with the number of people who decide not to. Every time there is a shooting, it's up to the criminal to determine how they want it to end, not the police. So when they come out with these crimes, it must be understood that this crime-inducing, criminal-supporting, foreign-funded agency called Jamaicans for Justice is that it is saying to the people that we don't want this police force because something wrong with it. This is a foreign-funded agency that is its aim is to disrupt and destroy our country on behalf of foreign interests. It was Carolyn Gomes who started it. And we knew what her interests were, lies, until we found out, and she was shamed and run off the public stage. But the mistake was they gave her a national honor. That is why, under no circumstances would I accept a national honor from Jamaica, if the likes of Carolyn Gomes could receive a national honor. This is outrageous. But finally, someone is speaking the truth.
Of surrendering peacefully to the police. We have had well over 1,000 firearm-related arrests each year. Persons have had their day in court and have, in some instances, been freed of the charges against them. They have all lived to see another day, simply because they choose not to direct deadly force against our members. We have had police officers and soldiers killed and seriously injured in some of these confrontations.
They never have anything to say about that.
It is mandated by policy that every incident of fatal shooting must be followed by a removal from frontline duty and an administrative review.
They don't care about that. Jamaicans for Justice and INDECOM don't care about that, because their relevance is based on a anti-police view, a continuous anti-police view in the country. That is how they gain relevance. This is how they maintain a semblance of relevance. And this is why Jamaicans for Justice must be removed from our country one way or the other. Must be removed from our country one way or the other. It is foreign funded and it must stop, and they must be removed from our country. We cannot allow a foreign funded agency to continue to sow discord in our country this way and to put the lives of our security officers in jeopardy.
This takes police that would normally be out to protect you, the citizens, off the street. And so, yes, we agree. We need to have less fatal shootings. And so I call upon JFJ to demonstrate to the public that your care is more for the well-being of our citizens and less for the relevance of your organization. And it is hard for me to think otherwise when I know JFJ is fully abreast of the facts. Finally, as I wrap up, This constant call for there to be more accountability over the JCF is in itself a slap in the face of INDECOM. Be reminded that that is their single most important mandate. And let me be absolutely clear, lest I am misunderstood or misquoted. I am a full supporter of what INDECOM stands for. An effective INDECOM assures me that those among us who believe that they are free to break the law will be held to account and be removed from within our ranks. The JCF's effectiveness depends on this. However, I'm concerned that the JFJ supports the idea that INDECOM's investigation is being hampered because we do not have body-worn camera footage to present to them, even while they have more than 60% of what is required to complete an investigation. And this includes statements from our members who are involved, ballistic information, report on the circumstances surrounding the case, and primacy over the scene. We in the JCF do not have the luxury of taking that position. So let me take this opportunity to reiterate the point that we have been making for some time. We will continue to use our superior intelligence gathering capabilities. We will continue to utilize our superior investigative capacity. We will use our superior operational capabilities, and we will go out and confront those who seek to destabilize our communities by wielding the threat of violence and terror. It continues to be our intention to bring those marauding criminals to justice so that they can have their day in court. Our track record of bringing violent criminals before a judge is beyond question. However, let me say again, when the police come for you, do not raise your weapons against us. Lay down your weapons and have your day in court. But should you choose the foolish option of challenging us with lethal force, know this: I do not train my police to lose. We have the superior training and firepower to ensure that we win every time. Let me encourage every Jamaican who truly believes in justice to work alongside the Jamaican Constabulary Force to continue our mission to bring down violent crime even further this year. And let's create a society where we can all feel safe. I've taken note of the Jamaican for Justice's condemnation.
Yeah. Commissioner Kevin Blake, the newly minted commissioner, well, not so newly minted, but it is refreshing to hear a member of the police high command at the highest level, the guy, the apex leader, saying the things that this commissioner has been saying. We've had many commissioners who have bowed down to the foreign-funded insurgents at Jamaicans for Justice, who bemoan the killing of murderous gangsters. I have been talking about this for years. There are so many organizations and agencies within the country that are seeking relevance. And as I've said repeatedly, them a look a boss. Everybody has sought to gain relevance on the backs of the least educated people, from politicians to musicians to everybody. Everybody is looking for a boss. Everybody is looking for some semblance of relevance. And Carolyn Gomes got hers. And of course, she got some comeuppance. And now JFJ has continued in that realm, as spreading lies and propaganda in order to gain funds, in order to earn more funds from their foreign backers. But this is a fight that the security forces have always found itself in. This is the fight that the Jamaican Constabulary Force that has always stood between the marauding thugs and ordinary law-abiding Jamaicans. And let me say this. Let me hasten to say this, as I've said repeatedly. The vast majority of Jamaican people are law-abiding people, but there are enough loud-mouthed, uneducated fools, ghetto rats, vermin. There are enough of them to make anybody who don't know believe that Jamaica is a place filled with illiterate morons. And that is what Jamaicans for Justice has continued to try to exploit. And they understand the weakness within the justice system. Because we know, and I've repeatedly said, I've repeatedly brought to your attention what is happening in our country between these foreign funded agencies that just sprung up over in Jamaica over the last several years. And even the laxity within the court system, with the judges who continue to turn these criminals loose, so that this is why these guys feel like they can do whatever they want without consequence. This is exactly why they operate the same way. This is why they feel they could raise their guns at police. And when they shoot and murder, when they murder members of the security forces, you never hear Jamaicans for Justice have anything to say. Nothing. Nothing. Jamaicans for Justice is not a government agency. It is a non-entity group that has come up with foreign money that is creating this tension within our country. And you heard Kevin Blake speak to the question of them talking about INDECOM not having the resources. INDECOM has way more resources than the Jamaican Constabulary Force. I said that in a video, and here is Kevin Blake saying it now. I said that in an earlier deep dive. And here's Commissioner Kevin Blake saying the same thing. INDECOM has the ability to bring foreign experts in, excuse me, to assist in its investigation when police officers or members of the security forces are alleged to have run afoul of the law, or even to question the legality of their actions that are taken in split-second scenarios. Police officers do not have the luxury of being Monday morning quarterbacks. Police officers don't have the luxury of what ifs. At the peril of death, at the peril of their own lives, police officers have to make quick decisions to protect their own lives and that of other citizens. 1987, I was walking home a complainant on Redhills Road on Blackwood Terrace. Me and two other police officers. Complainant had reported to us that a young man in the Blackwood Terrace area threatened to kill him. We were walking up the lane, and there was this young man with his hands folded. It was dark, could hardly see anything. He opened fire on us, opened fire. The gentleman we were escorting home got shot. He got shot, pop, pop, twice. And all I could do was jump on the guy. I couldn't pull my firearm. It was too quick. Everything happened so fast and it was so close to me. And I jumped and grabbed him. I was able to disarm him. He shot me in my hip. I got up, took the gentleman to hospital, and then went to a different hospital to get treatment. This is what police officers face every day. And there are people like those at Jamaicans for Justice that continue to perpetuate the lie in order to gain fame and to get money, to gain relevance and to get money. They're worse than scavengers. They're worse than crustaceans. The people at Jamaicans for Justice are worse than scavengers. They prey on the carcasses of dead police officers and the dead, innocent, law-abiding Jamaicans who get their lives snuffed out almost on a daily basis. That's what they are. It's nothing to do with justice. So when a police officer is faced with the dilemma of having to make a split-second decision, they have every right to make that decision. They will continue to make that right, and I encourage them to make that right. And I give kudos to Clerk Kevin Blake for standing up for the men and women under his command. That's not the end of it. Because when they get arrested, there's a revolving door that turns them back loose onto the streets. In Westmoreland, a cabbie who had a cab driver who had killed several people through reckless driving was yesterday given a suspended sentence. I'll read the article for you. It's really short. A Westmoreland taxi operator pleaded guilty to 5 counts of causing death by dangerous driving in connection with a fatal crash in 2023, has been given a non-custodial suspended sentence. Almighty God. 47-year-old Delroy Rodney, who is from a Belmont address, has been prevented from obtaining and holding a driver's license for 3 years and fined $3 million in restitution, $500,000 each for the 5 deceased and lone survivor. Okay, so 500,000 Jamaican dollars, $500,000 Jamaican dollars for the life of an individual. I kid you not. The sentence was handed out by Supreme Court Justice Courtney Day in the Westmoreland Circuit Court on Thursday evening. Rodney had admitted to the charge on November 14th of last year. The 5 people who lost their lives in the crash are 15-year-old student Lavacia Forrester and her mother, 39-year-old Pertinia Wallace, along with O'Neill Allen, his mother, 65-year-old Angela. Sorry, let me see Angela. What's Angela's name? Angela Samuel and 54-year-old Janet Thompson. Police reports are that on November 13th, Rodney was driving a Toyota Voxy bus with 7 passengers aboard when a vehicle in front reportedly slowed down, which resulted in Rodney swerving and colliding with, of course, with the vehicle that slowed down because he was speeding. And yeah, of course, the vehicle came to a stop and 3 sustained serious injuries and were later pronounced dead at the hospital. Rodney was arrested and charged by the police, was later granted a $7 million bond by the court. During the last court date in November, Justice Day ordered a social inquiry report for Rodney and victim state from of course, this is all mandatory, but yes, the judges are all, they consider themselves. And this is a judge that renowned for that kind of behavior, Courtney Day, of course. So this is what law enforcement faces in the country. And, the family of this, in this particular instance, they're devastated because there's no justice. There's no justice. This is what the government is failing to do, is to remove these people from the bench and to remove Jamaicans for justice. This is what's happening in the country. It needs to change. But here are the lawyers who represent.
Had to prepare. And so we read the law. We went to the extent, which is unusual, and it might be the first, where we had a petition signed by 160 members from the community begging for mercy.
Not just the community of the victims. So we went into McAlpine White House Farm where persons lost their lives.
And not only that, not only that, he asked for mercy on his behalf. He is really a good, solid, upright person. He's a loving dad. He's a great husband, I'm told. He is the head deacon for the Belmont Assembly Adventist Church. So this is someone you could regard as the star of the.
Listen, I'm tired of listening to this crap shoot. You hear me? Because when these people commit these heinous acts, all of a sudden you hear that they're the greatest person on earth. That he's a head deacon, he's that. Who cares? Who cares? Who cares? This guy took so many lives and basically walk away scot-free. Scot-free. I'll tell you one thing. That fine will never be paid. So the fine administered by this so-called judge, purely academic. He will never find that money to pay those people, to pay the court, or the people who, I don't know who gets it in this scenario, because who the hell cares? How do you impose a non-custodial sentence, regardless of who this guy is and how great and how good this guy is? How do you impose a non-custodial sentence in a situation like that? But hey, welcome to Jamaica, right? Everything good, man. Listen, there's a lot of work to be done in Jamaica. There is a lot of work to be done, and Jamaica is going to have to get serious. You know, one of the things we like to talk about in Jamaica is about uh, this small Asian nation that has um, they reportedly looked at our system of government. It's not Indonesia. They'll come to me, small, tiny nation, and how prosperous they have become. What they do not talk about is that it's Singapore. Singapore. Everybody talk about how Singapore has copied our system of government, but nobody talks about why Singapore has become a successful nation. They only talk about the success, but you don't get to success without adopting a certain methodology to get to that level of success. The methodology that Singapore implemented and executed was a system of good economic principles and strict discipline within the society. Nobody talk about Singapore's strict laws. Now, am I advocating that we have Singaporean style criminal justice system? No. I don't think we need to have the most draconian system, but we don't need to have the most lax system that people from all over the world think they can just go to Jamaica and just be free and do whatever they want. And we damn sure can have a system that continue to be a laughing stock, where hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people are dying every year in a small country of probably less than 3 million people. This cannot be the way we do business, but it is the way it is right now. We need to have a consensus that the police was going to do their jobs regardless of whether people like it or not. It's going to happen. And we thank God for this police commissioner. And we pray for the officers who have to go out there and deal with the level of thuggery and complicity that's out there, especially in some of these urban underserved communities, that some of them need to be bulldozed. Some of these places need to be bulldozed. All those zinc fences need to be torn down because they're a breeding ground for these criminal thugs. They need to be bulldozed. But one of the things that need to be done before I go, the law that allows people to squat and settle on people's lands illegally, that law about squatters' rights, that need to be removed from the books, because this has caused all of these squatter communities to spring up all around the country, especially in the urban areas. These unsettling squatter communities. So nobody wants to farm, nobody wants to work, everybody wants to just live the fancy lifestyle. Even behind those zinc fences, they want to come out fully dressed. Everybody was are influencers and musicians. Everybody are artists. There are no farmers anymore. Nobody want dirt under their fingernail, but everybody want to eat. This is a deep dive. We'll talk another time. Good night.